Dr. Patricia Henley had seen some truly horrific things in her 23 years as a pediatric trauma surgeon. She'd extracted Legos from places Legos were never meant to go, performed emergency surgery on children who'd somehow managed to swallow everything from marbles to toy dinosaurs, and once spent 6 hours removing glitter from a 7-year-old's digestive system, after what she could only describe as a craft supply incident of catastrophic proportions. So when the Galactic Medical Consortium contacted her about providing expert consultation on juvenile trauma cases involving non-human species, she figured it was just another Tuesday with better pay and more interesting travel arrangements. The compensation package includes full diplomatic immunity, hazard pay equivalent to 3 years' salary, and a guaranteed resurrection clause in case of accidental death, explained the holographic representative, whose species apparently resembled a cross between a praying mantis and a filing cabinet. Resurrection clause? Patricia raised an eyebrow while reviewing the contract on her tablet. That's either very thoughtful or very concerning. Standard precaution when working with the Vorthak collective. They have intense protective instincts regarding their offspring. Patricia had worked with overprotective parents before. How bad could aliens be? The answer, she discovered 3 days later, while being escorted through what could only be described as a militarized space station designed by someone with serious trust issues and a fetish for defensive architecture, was significantly worse than even the helicopter parents from the private school district. Dr. Henley, announced Commander Zexthrak, a 9-foot-tall reptilian being whose scales shifted color based on stress levels, currently cycling through an alarming spectrum of reds and oranges. We must inform you that the situation has escalated since our initial communication. Escalated how? The juveniles have been quarantined in maximum security containment after the incident. Patricia stopped walking. In her experience, when medical professionals started using phrases like the incident with that particular tone of barely controlled panic, someone had either died or done something so spectacularly awful that death might have been preferable. What kind of incident? They injured 17 adult Vorthak warriors during what your species might term a tantrum. Patricia blinked. How old are these children? Approximately 6 months post-hatching. And they injured adult warriors? Severely. 2 required cybernetic limb replacements. She followed Commander Zexthrak through increasingly fortified corridors, past what appeared to be actual military checkpoints complete with armed guards and biometric scanners. The pediatric ward looked more like a black site detention facility designed by someone who'd watched too many prison movies and decided they needed more lasers. Commander, exactly what species am I dealing with here? The Vorthak are our galaxy's apex predator species. Adult specimens average 12 feet in height, possess natural armor plating resistant to most energy weapons, and demonstrate hunting instincts so refined they can track prey across multiple star systems. And their babies injured your warriors. Their babies are precocious. The blast doors opened to reveal what Patricia could only describe as a nightmare interpretation of a daycare center. The walls were reinforced Durasteel. The toys appeared to be industrial-grade construction equipment scaled down to child size, and in the center of the room, surrounded by what looked like the remnants of several security robots, sat 3 small creatures that resembled baby dragons crossed with armored tanks. They were adorable. They were also, according to the readouts on her medical scanner, approximately the size of large dogs, but reading life signs that suggested they could bench press a small spacecraft. "Oh," Patricia said, watching one of the juveniles casually bite through what appeared to be a titanium alloy teething ring. "Oh, this is going to be interesting." "Doctor." Commander Zexthrak's voice carried the particular strain of someone whose career was experiencing rapid, unscheduled termination. "There's something else you should know about the situation. More than the fact that you've got baby Godzillas in timeout? The juveniles' parents were killed in the recent conflict with the hegemony. These 3 are the last of their bloodline. They're also, according to our xenobiologists, refusing to eat, sleep, or interact with any of our caretakers. They've been like this for 2 weeks. Patricia looked at the 3 small creatures, who were now staring at her with eyes that held far too much intelligence and grief for beings only 6 months old. One of them, slightly smaller than the others, was holding what appeared to be a broken piece of technology, with the careful precision of someone clutching a precious memento. They're not being aggressive, she realized. They're grieving. Impossible. Vorthak juveniles don't develop emotional complexity until… Commander, with all due respect, I've seen more traumatized children than you've had hot dinners. These babies are in shock. That's when the smallest juvenile made a sound that was unmistakably a sob, and Patricia's heart broke in exactly the way it always did when she met a patient who needed her help. Right, she said, setting down her medical bag and ignoring every safety protocol she'd been briefed on. Everyone out. I need to work. Doctor, we cannot leave you alone with… Commander, these children just lost their parents and have been surrounded by strangers who are treating them like dangerous animals instead of traumatized babies. Either you trust me to do my job, or you find someone else to fix this mess. Commander Zexthrak's scales shifted to a particularly vibrant shade of orange that probably indicated either respect or the alien equivalent of a stress ulcer. The doors sealed with a hiss that sounded suspiciously like a coffin closing, leaving Patricia alone with 3 grieving alien children who could apparently rip apart security robots with their bare claws. She sat down on the floor, pulled out her emergency snack stash, and began what she privately thought of as the most important pediatric consultation of her career. Hey guys, she said softly. I know everything sucks right now, but maybe we can figure this out together. The smallest juvenile looked up at her with eyes that held more pain than any 6-month-old should carry, and Patricia realized she might be in significantly more trouble than anyone had warned her about. 47 minutes later, Patricia had successfully established what she considered the fundamental truth of pediatric medicine. Regardless of species, traumatized children responded to patience, respect, and strategic deployment of fruit snacks. The Vorthak juveniles. She'd started thinking of them as Tank, Spike, and Little Bit, based on their relative sizes and personality quirks, had initially approached her offerings with the suspicious wariness of beings who'd learned not to trust gifts from strangers. But hunger was hunger, even for apex predator babies, and Patricia had learned long ago that food was the universal language of trust-building. That's it, Little Bit, she murmured as the smallest juvenile cautiously accepted a piece of dried apple. Nobody's going to hurt you here. Tank, the largest of the 3, was clearly the protective older sibling. He positioned himself between Patricia and the other 2, watching her every movement with the focused intensity of someone ready to commit violence if she proved threatening. Spike appeared to be the middle child, exhibiting the classic symptoms of anxiety and hypervigilance that Patricia recognized from human children who'd experienced sudden trauma. All 3 were demonstrating textbook signs of grief response, which should have been impossible according to every xenobiological study on Vorthak development. The thing is, she told them conversationally while distributing more snacks, adults are really stupid sometimes. They look at you guys and see scary predators instead of scared kids, because that's easier than admitting they don't know how to help. Little Bit made a soft chittering sound that Patricia's universal translator helpfully identified as query, uncertainty, request for clarification. You want to know why they're afraid of you? All 3 juveniles focused on her with the kind of attention that suggested they understood far more than anyone had given them credit for. Because you're strong, stronger than they expected, stronger than their security systems were designed to handle. And when strong people are sad and scared, sometimes that strength comes out in ways that frighten others. Tank's aggressive posture shifted slightly, and Patricia caught a glimpse of something that looked like confusion in his large, intelligent eyes. But here's the secret they don't want to tell you, she continued, offering him a granola bar. Being strong doesn't mean you can't be sad. It doesn't mean you don't need help. It just means you need people who understand that strength and grief can exist in the same person. That's when Little Bit crawled into her lap. The motion was so sudden and unexpected that Patricia barely had time to register what was happening before 60 pounds of armored alien baby was curled against her chest, making soft sounds that her translator couldn't identify, but her heart recognized immediately. Outside the containment area, alarms began blaring. Dr. Henley! Commander Zexthrak's voice crackled through the intercom, with the particular panic of someone watching his worst nightmare unfold in real time. Step away from the juvenile immediately. They're reading massive spikes in aggressive potential. They're not aggressive, Patricia called back, gently stroking Littlebit's armored head, while Tank and Spike moved closer, clearly wanting similar comfort, but unsure how to ask for it. They're bonding. Impossible! Vorthak juveniles don't form attachment bonds until they reach maturity. Well, somebody forgot to tell them that. Patricia watched Tank and Spike engage in what appeared to be a rapid conversation involving chittering sounds, scale color changes, and complex body language that suggested they were debating whether to trust this strange alien female who smelled like antiseptic and offered food without expecting violence in return. The decision was apparently unanimous, because moments later she found herself serving as a combination heating pad, security blanket, and snack dispenser for 3 traumatized alien children who were purring like oversized cats. Doctor, Commander Zexthrak's voice had moved from panic to something approaching existential crisis. Our sensors are detecting unprecedented neurochemical changes in the juveniles. Their stress hormones have dropped to baseline levels for the first time since containment began. That's called feeling safe, Patricia replied, attempting to reach her medical bag without disturbing the small pile of alien babies who had apparently decided she was now their designated comfort human. It's what happens when children receive appropriate emotional support. But they're Vorthak. They don't require emotional support. Commander, every intelligent species requires emotional support. The fact that your people don't understand that probably explains why these 3 have been refusing care from your medical staff. She managed to extract her portable scanner and began running basic health assessments on her new patients. The readings were immediately concerning. All 3 showed signs of severe malnutrition, dehydration, and stress-related organ dysfunction that would have required immediate intervention in human children. How long did you say they've been refusing food and medical care? 14 standard days. They're dying, Patricia said bluntly. Not from their injuries or from aggression. They're dying from grief and abandonment because nobody bothered to treat them like people instead of weapons. The silence from the intercom suggested she'd just delivered information that challenged some fundamental assumptions about Vorthak biology and psychology. Doctor, if I may ask, what are you doing now? Patricia looked down at Tank, who was carefully examining her stethoscope with the focused curiosity of a child who'd never seen medical equipment that wasn't designed to contain, rather than heal. I'm giving them a checkup, and then I'm going to see if they'll let me treat their wounds. They've refused all medical intervention from our staff. Your staff probably tried to restrain them first and ask questions later. These kids need to feel like they have some control over what happens to them. She held up the stethoscope for Tank to investigate, letting him examine it thoroughly before gently placing it against his chest. His initial startled reaction quickly gave way to fascination as he heard his own heartbeat amplified through the device. Spike and Littlebit immediately demanded their own turns with this mysterious human medical magic, and Patricia found herself conducting the most unconventional pediatric examination of her career, while 3 baby apex predators took turns listening to each other's heartbeats and chittering with delight. Their wounds are infected, she announced after completing her assessment. They need antibiotics, nutritional support, and proper wound care. But more importantly, they need someone who understands that they're children, not weapons. Dr. Henley. Commander Zexthrak's voice carried a strange note of something that might have been hope. Are you saying you can help them? Patricia looked at Tank, who was now carefully holding Littlebit, while she examined the fascinating texture of Patricia's medical gloves. She watched Spike systematically organize her medical supplies with the meticulous precision of a child who needed structure and routine to feel secure. I'm saying I can try, but I'm going to need some changes around here. What kind of changes? The kind that involve treating traumatized children like traumatized children instead of contained weapons. Starting with getting them out of this prison and into an actual medical facility. Absolutely not. The security risk? Commander, these babies haven't eaten in 2 weeks, and they're currently using me as a combination jungle gym and security blanket. The biggest security risk right now is them dying of neglect while your people argue about containment protocols. That's when Tank looked up at her with those impossibly intelligent eyes and said something that her translator rendered as safe female healer pack bond request acceptance. Patricia stared at the readout, then at Tank, then at the other two juveniles who were watching this exchange with the focused attention of beings who understood that their entire future depended on her response. Did he just ask me to adopt them? The silence from the intercom was so complete that Patricia wondered if the communication system had malfunctioned. Finally, Commander Zexthrak's voice returned, carrying a note of barely controlled panic. Dr. Henley, I believe the juvenile has just declared you to be their new parental unit according to Vorthak social customs. And that means? It means, according to our legal experts, that you are now the legal guardian of the 3 most dangerous juveniles in known space, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails under galactic law. Patricia looked down at 3 small faces that were gazing at her with expressions of hope, trust, and desperate love, and realized that her simple medical consultation had just become something significantly more complicated. Well, she said, gently stroking Little Bit's scales while Tank and Spike pressed closer. I guess I'm a mom now. 3 days later, Patricia discovered that interspecies adoption came with a learning curve roughly equivalent to defusing nuclear weapons while blindfolded and riding a unicycle. Dr. Henley, Ambassador Thekvara announced with the particular tone of someone delivering news that would either start a war or end a career. The Galactic Council has voted to classify your guardianship as a Category 7 diplomatic incident. What's a Category 7? Events that fundamentally challenge existing galactic legal frameworks and require emergency legislation to prevent civilizational collapse. Patricia looked up from where she sat in her new quarters, hastily converted from a diplomatic suite to accommodate 3 rapidly growing alien children, while Tank methodically disassembled and rebuilt a complex piece of technology that the engineering staff swore was impossible for anyone without advanced degrees to understand. Because I'm babysitting? Because you are now the legal guardian of the last surviving members of the most feared warrior species in known space, and they've apparently imprinted on you as their permanent parental unit. Little Bit chose that moment to toddle over with what appeared to be a chunk of Durasteel she'd somehow torn from the wall plating, offering it to Patricia with the proud expression of a child presenting a crayon drawing. Thank you, sweetie, Patricia said automatically, accepting the metal fragment while making a mental note to contact engineering about baby-proofing. Very nice work. Doctor, Ambassador Thekvara continued with visible strain. Do you understand that what you just received is a fragment of military-grade armor plating that requires industrial equipment to damage? I understand that Little Bit wanted to give me a present, and I should acknowledge her effort appropriately. She tore through 6 inches of reinforced hull material with her bare claws. She's teething. Human babies chew on furniture. Vorthak babies apparently chew on spacecraft. I'll add, chew toys rated for apex predators to my shopping list. The ambassador's facial features, insofar as Patricia could read them on a being who resembled a cross between an octopus and a diplomatic briefcase, suggested someone experiencing a profound philosophical crisis. Dr. Henley, the juveniles have grown 4 inches and gained 30 pounds each since beginning your care protocols. Our xenobiologists estimate they're developing at approximately 10 times the normal Vorthak maturation rate. They were malnourished and traumatized. Good nutrition and emotional security tend to accelerate healing in children. They've also demonstrated cognitive abilities that shouldn't emerge for several years, including complex problem-solving, advanced communication skills, and what appears to be tactical planning. Patricia glanced over at Spike, who was currently engaged in teaching Tank and Little Bit what looked suspiciously like a strategy game using colored blocks and a complexity level that would challenge most adults. Smart kids learn faster when they feel safe and supported. This is basic child development. Doctor, yesterday they collectively disassembled and improved 3 separate security systems, reorganized the station's waste management protocols for optimal efficiency, and convinced the engineering staff to implement design modifications based on their suggestions. They're helpful children who like to solve problems. I encourage that behavior because it gives them a sense of agency and accomplishment. You've accidentally created the most advanced tactical planning unit in galactic space, and they view you as their commanding officer. Patricia paused in the process of reviewing her medical notes. Come again? The juveniles have established a perfect military hierarchy with you as supreme commander. Tank handles strategy and protection, Spike manages logistics and resources, and Little Bit specializes in reconnaissance and infiltration. They've been unconsciously organizing themselves around supporting and defending you. She looked at her 3 adopted children, who were now watching this conversation, with the alert attention of beings who understood far more than anyone expected. Tank had positioned himself strategically between Patricia and the ambassador, while Spike appeared to be calculating exit routes, and Little Bit was examining the visitor's equipment with what might charitably be called professional interest. They're just being protective. It's normal behavior for children who've experienced trauma and loss. Doctor, they've already initiated 14 separate defensive protocols on your behalf. 3 diplomatic delegations have been intimidated into changing their positions on Vorthak territorial rights. The hegemony ambassador requested immediate transfer to a different sector after Tank made what our translators identified as detailed threats involving anatomically creative violence when he suggested your guardianship might be temporary. He threatened someone? He explained, in extensive detail, what would happen to anyone who attempted to separate you from your new family unit. Our xenopsychologists are calling it the most sophisticated intimidation display they've ever documented from a juvenile of any species. Patricia felt a warm glow of pride that she was fairly certain she shouldn't be experiencing. That's my boy. Dr. Henley, do you realize that the Galactic Council is now afraid to override your guardianship because they're terrified of what 3 angry Vorthak juveniles might do if they perceive their parental unit as threatened? Good. Children need stability and consistency. Legal challenges would be traumatic for them. Ambassador Thekvara made a sound that her translator unhelpfully rendered as bureaucratic despair with undertones of existential questioning. There's more. The juveniles' rapid development and enhanced capabilities have caught the attention of various military organizations. We've received 17 different recruitment offers, 43 research proposals, and at least 6 attempts to classify them as strategic weapons. Absolutely not. Doctor, the compensation packages being offered, these are children, not weapons. They're not for sale, trade, or military deployment. Tank's scales shifted to a pattern that Patricia was learning indicated satisfaction and approval, while Little Bit toddled over to lean against her leg in a gesture of clear affection and trust. Furthermore, the ambassador continued with the air of someone delivering increasingly terrible news. Your rejection of these offers has been interpreted by several species as a demonstration of humanity's long-term strategic planning and advanced psychological warfare capabilities. How does "no, you can't have my kids" translate to psychological warfare? The prevailing theory is that humans are deliberately developing the ultimate warrior species through advanced child-rearing techniques, using emotional manipulation to create loyalty bonds that surpass traditional military conditioning. Patricia stared at him. People think I'm brainwashing them? People think humanity has discovered how to turn the galaxy's most dangerous predators into willing servants through the application of superior parenting skills. She paused, considering this interpretation of her actions. That's actually kind of insulting to everyone involved. It's also caused 3 major species to formally request human advisors for their juvenile development programs, 2 minor wars to pause while military strategists study your methods, and the establishment of a black market for human child-rearing secrets that's destabilizing 17 different economies. Spike chose that moment to approach with what appeared to be a datapad displaying complex orbital calculations and engineering schematics that he'd apparently been working on as a hobby project. Very good, sweetie, Patricia said, reviewing his work with the same tone she'd used to praise finger painting. Your trajectory calculations are improving. Doctor, Ambassador Thekvara said weakly, that's a complete redesign of our defensive satellite network with efficiency improvements of approximately 40%. He likes math puzzles. I give him challenging problems to keep his mind occupied. You've been inadvertently conducting advanced military research using traumatized alien children as a think tank. I've been providing educational enrichment activities appropriate for gifted children recovering from loss. Dr. Henley, the ambassador said with the tone of someone whose worldview was undergoing rapid, unscheduled disassembly, I need to ask you a direct question. Shoot. Are you aware that you've accidentally created the most effective child development program in galactic history? Fundamentally challenged existing assumptions about juvenile psychology across multiple species, and established humanity as the premier experts in advanced parenting techniques? Patricia looked at Tank, who was now demonstrating a complex engineering concept to his siblings using building blocks and what appeared to be intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics. She watched Spike organizing their shared study materials with efficiency that would impress most military logistics specialists. She observed Little Bit carefully examining a broken toy with the focused attention of someone reverse engineering its design principles. I've been taking care of 3 smart, traumatized kids who needed someone to love them and help them heal, she said simply. And in the process, you've accidentally become the most influential figure in galactic child development theory. Little Bit looked up at Patricia with bright, intelligent eyes and made a soft sound that her translator identified as love, gratitude, security, family bond, permanent. Well, Patricia said, gathering all 3 children closer while they purred contentedly against her. I guess stranger things have happened. Doctor, I'm not sure they have. 6 months later, Patricia's morning routine had evolved to include reviewing overnight reports of galactic civilizations, restructuring their entire educational systems based on what the media had dubbed the Henley method, while simultaneously preventing her 3 rapidly growing children from accidentally conquering small star systems before breakfast. Tank, sweetie, what did we discuss about intimidating the diplomatic corps? The now 7-foot-tall Vorthak juvenile looked up from where he'd been having what appeared to be a pleasant conversation with a delegation from the Regelian Trade Federation. His scales shifted to patterns that Patricia had learned indicated mild confusion mixed with protective instinct. I was explaining the mathematical inefficiencies in their proposed mining contracts, Mom. The territorial disputes could be resolved through optimal resource allocation rather than military posturing. And how did you explain this? I demonstrated the projected casualty rates for their current approach versus the economic benefits of cooperative development. Patricia sighed while reviewing the diplomatic incident report on her tablet. Tank's demonstration had apparently involved detailed tactical projections that proved the Rigelian military would suffer catastrophic losses if they continued their current expansion policies, presented with the casual precision of someone discussing weather patterns. Tank, when we discuss military strategy at the breakfast table, that's family conversation. When you discuss military strategy with foreign governments, that's intimidation. I was being helpful. I know, honey. But sometimes being helpful looks like showing off, and showing off makes people nervous. Little Bit, now 5 feet tall and possessing the alarming ability to reprogram virtually any computer system through intuitive understanding of quantum information theory, toddled over with what appeared to be a data core from the station's main computer. Little Bit, what have we said about taking apart the infrastructure? I was fixing it, Mom. The encryption protocols were vulnerable to basic penetration attacks. Did you ask permission before fixing it? No, Mom. What do we do when we want to fix something that belongs to other people? Ask first, fix second, document improvements third. That's right. Now please put the computer back where you found it and apologize to the nice engineers. Little Bit chittered apologetically and scampered off to return the liberated hardware, while Patricia turned her attention to Spike, who was currently engaged in what appeared to be redesigning the station's environmental systems during his morning educational enrichment time. Spike, please tell me you're not reorganizing life support without consulting anyone. I'm optimizing air filtration for the new residents, Mom. The Zephyrian delegation has different atmospheric requirements, and the current system isn't efficiently managing mixed species needs. Patricia looked at her tablet, which was now displaying 17 different requests for immediate implementation of Spike's environmental modifications, along with formal commendations from the engineering staff and 3 different job offers from atmospheric management corporations. That's very thoughtful, sweetheart. Did you remember to submit your modifications through proper channels? I filed the appropriate requisition forms and included detailed technical specifications for review and approval. Good boy. Dr. Kellerman, the station's chief of galactic relations, approached with the expression of someone whose job description had evolved far beyond what he'd signed up for, and was no longer certain whether he was managing a diplomatic crisis or witnessing the emergence of a new evolutionary paradigm. Dr. Henley, we need to discuss the latest developments. Which developments? The 17 different species requesting human parenting consultants, the 43 research proposals studying the Henley method, or the 12 different attempts to classify my children as living strategic resources. All of the above, plus the 3 new ones that emerged overnight. Patricia poured herself coffee while keeping one eye on her children, who were currently engaged in what appeared to be collaborative engineering that involved complex mathematical calculations, advanced materials science, and the kind of intuitive problem-solving that was making xenobiologists across the galaxy question their fundamental assumptions about intelligence and development. What are the new ones? The Centauri Collective has formally requested a human advisor to help them understand why their own children are now demanding individual names, personal autonomy, and educational choices. The Andromedan Empire wants to hire you as a consultant because their military efficiency has increased by 300% since they started treating their junior officers with what they call human-style supportive leadership. And the Galactic Council has established a new department specifically to study the long-term implications of emotional intelligence in species development. Emotional intelligence? That's what they're calling it. The radical concept that treating intelligent beings with respect, providing emotional support, and encouraging individual development produces superior results compared to traditional authority-based compliance systems. Patricia watched Tank help Littlebit reach a high shelf, while Spike organized their shared project materials with the kind of cooperative efficiency that would impress most corporate management teams. So, basically, they've discovered that being nice to people works better than being mean to them. Dr. Henley, you've accidentally revolutionized galactic civilization by applying basic human child-rearing techniques to interspecies relations. I've raised 3 children who feel loved and secure. Everything else is just a side effect. A side effect that's caused 14 different species to restructure their educational systems, 7 governments to modify their leadership training programs, and at least 3 minor diplomatic revelations to be resolved through what they're now calling Henley Protocols. Which are treating everyone involved as intelligent individuals worthy of respect, providing emotional support during stressful negotiations, and encouraging creative problem-solving rather than rigid adherence to existing frameworks. Littlebit bounded back over, having successfully returned the computer core and apparently made friends with half the engineering staff in the process. She handed Patricia a datapad displaying what appeared to be formal thank you messages from 17 different technical specialists. They said my improvements made their jobs easier, Mom, and they want to know if I have any other suggestions for system optimization. That's wonderful, sweetie. What did you tell them? That I'd need to review their complete technical specifications and operational requirements before making recommendations, and that any modifications should be implemented through proper testing protocols to ensure safety and efficiency. Dr. Kellerman stared at Littlebit with the expression of someone watching a kindergartner deliver graduate-level technical analysis. Dr. Henley, your 5-year-old just provided more comprehensive project management protocols than our senior engineering staff. Littlebit is very thorough. I encourage attention to detail. You've accidentally trained the most advanced technical consulting firm in known space, and they're calling you Mom. Tank approached with what appeared to be a formal invitation written in 17 different languages and decorated with official seals from major galactic organizations. Mom, the Galactic Council wants to offer you a position as Director of Interspecies Development Relations with full diplomatic immunity, a salary equivalent to a small planet's GDP, and guaranteed educational support for all 3 of us through advanced degree programs. Patricia reviewed the offer while her children watched with the interested attention of beings who understood that their future depended on her decision, but trusted her judgment completely. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd spent years working with human children whose potential was often overlooked or dismissed by adults who saw problems instead of possibilities. Now she found herself in a galaxy where entire civilizations were making the same mistake on a species-wide scale, treating intelligence and creativity as threats to be contained rather than gifts to be nurtured. What do you think? She asked them. Will we be able to stay together? Littlebit asked. Will we be able to continue our studies? Spike added. Will we be able to help other people the way you helped us? Tank concluded. The simplicity of their questions cut through all the bureaucratic complexity and galactic politics. They didn't care about salaries or diplomatic immunity or revolutionary child development theories. They cared about family, learning, and using their abilities to make things better for others. The same fundamental desires that drove every healthy child, regardless of species. Patricia looked at 3 brilliant, loving, slightly terrifying children who had transformed from traumatized refugees into confident, capable individuals through nothing more complicated than consistent care, emotional support, and the radical notion that intelligence deserved respect regardless of age or species. I think, she said, gathering them close while they purred contentedly, we're going to have some very interesting adventures. Dr. Kellerman shook his head with the bemused expression of someone whose universe had been fundamentally reorganized by the simple application of human decency. Dr. Henley, do you realize you've become the most influential figure in galactic child development through the advanced technique of treating children like people? Dr. Kellerman, Patricia replied, watching Tank help his siblings plan their next educational project with the kind of collaborative enthusiasm that was apparently revolutionizing galactic approaches to leadership and cooperation. I've learned that most problems in the universe can be solved by remembering that everyone, regardless of species, age, or previous assumptions about their capabilities, deserves to be treated with kindness, respect, and the understanding that they're probably smarter than you think they are. Littlebit looked up at her with bright, intelligent eyes and made a soft sound that no translator needed to interpret. Sometimes the simplest truths were the most revolutionary, and sometimes the best way to change the galaxy was simply to love someone who needed it.